In terms of the national body, ourselves as the independent mechanism and the role that we have, when the committee is producing general comments, we will make submissions to the committee, setting out what we consider would be the most practical interpretation of the UN-CRPD articles to ensure effective implementation in our jurisdictions. We also occasionally support individuals to make complaints to the committee, and we've also supported, as Paul mentioned, the committee whenever it's conducting an inquiry. And in the UK, we had an inquiry into the impact of welfare reform on the rights of persons with disabilities that led to a finding of evidence of grave and systemic violations of human rights of the persons with disabilities. In terms of where we are at the minute on the examination process, we're currently at stage 2 of what I consider to be a 3-stage process. So the first stage, we've had our state party report has been produced. This is the initial report, and then we produced a shadow report along with a number of other organisations, and we're now at the list of issues stage, where the committee has adopted its list of issues, and that has been sent to the state, and we're waiting to hear what the state has to say on that, and we'll make a further submission at that stage. So there's just 3 key points I want to make in terms of our role as a national body during the examination process. This is the list of issues session, but the main thing I want to make is, in terms of the principle of nothing about us without us, the role of the independent mechanism should really be to make sure that that applies to the examination process itself. Our role should really be to ensure that persons with disabilities are able to participate effectively in the examination process, and that and to provide them with a platform whereby they can engage with the committee directly. It's quite often said that national monitoring mechanisms are the bridge between civil society and government, but I would say it also that we're the bridge between the UN system and civil society. So in terms of what we have done, we try to involve persons with disabilities in drafting our reports and in other ways in terms of crafting what we're saying to the committee. But we were quite disappointed that the UK government didn't actually provide funding to allow persons with disabilities to attend the examination session, which it has done with other examinations. So that was a slight disappointment for us. So that's something to highlight at the time of ratification, that money is set aside to ensure persons with disabilities can actually go to Geneva and participate in it. Whilst we weren't able to provide that funding, we've looked into some IT mechanisms that we could adopt, Skype or other things like that, that would allow committee members in Geneva to communicate directly with persons with disabilities in Northern Ireland. The second point, main point that I wanted to make, was in relation to the concluding observations themselves. And it's been said previously about the UN-CRPD ratification is the marriage. Well, if it is a marriage, the concluding observations are your key arguing points, if I can put it like that. These are where the UN-CRPD committee has said things that you have to change about the way that you're acting. For me, it would be putting away clothes, washing dishes, things like that. And the state then has to act in relation to what those key issues are. For us in the UK, the concluding observations don't have legal effect. We can't, as a national mechanism, take the UK government to court and seek enforcement of those concluding observations. So what we have to do is find sophisticated ways of advocating for them to be implemented by government. One of the key mechanisms we adopt is asking the government to produce an implementation plan. UN-CRPD and the changes that need to be put into effect to bring about compliance are long-term and require structural change. So we advocate that the government would put in place a long-term plan to ensure implementation. There's a lot of guidelines on national action plans that can be adopted. And the one final area, and I know you're hearing from some legislators later on today, is ensuring oversight of the legislature in terms of how the government goes about complying with UN-CRPD concluding observations. And then one final point which I'd like to make is just that UN-CRPD shouldn't be seen in isolation. there's a range of other UN treaty examination processes. And one area that the UN CRPD committee has in particular developed is linkages with the Sustainable Development Goals. And I think in Ireland, with such a vibrant development sector, there's a potential there to develop the capacity of disability advocates to have a two-pronged approach there in terms of rights of persons with disabilities. So that's me. Thanks very much.